Hi, I'm Bud. Welcome to Kimba's Kingdom, the home of everything Kimba the White Lion. On this channel, I'm hoping to connect with fellow Kimba fans like you. So if there's something you'd like to see more of, or less of, let me know in the comments. I want to make the best videos I can for you guys. Today we'll be asking whether Kimba the White Lion, the beloved 1965 animated series about an idealistic young lion cub, is secretly a Western. Yeehaw! Kimba the White Lion has always been difficult to place into a particular genre. The series is generally considered to fall under the shonen genre of manga and anime, along with series like Dragon Ball, My Hero Academia and Naruto, but it really doesn't seem to fit. Yes, it's about a heroic male protagonist who fights for what he believes in, and it does have the balance of comedy and action typical of such series, but it's slower paced, more philosophical and more focused on reflecting on the state of the world and our place in it, rather than focusing on the character's journey to become stronger and the best of the best. It's technically shonen, but it doesn't feel like shonen. But then what else is it? Fantasy, perhaps? It does feature talking animals and a mystical mountain, so technically it could count as fantasy, but again, it doesn't feel like fantasy. The focus isn't on the fantasy elements. The focus is on exploring Kimba as a character, and on exploring the relationship between humans and animals in our world, and issues like what it means to be a good leader. It's not really about the fantasy aspect. You could consider it a cartoon, perhaps. There have been many cartoon series which focus largely on exploring aspects of our world and on inner exploration of the characters in recent years. Avatar: The Last Airbender, My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, and Star Wars: The Clone Wars, for example. But these series all came out within the past couple of decades. The cartoon genre was a very different place back in 1965, dominated by fun but simple episodic series like Tom and Jerry, The Flintstones, and Yogi Bear. Kimba the White Lion definitely doesn't fit into that genre, and to retroactively place it in the cartoon genre of the 2010s would be a little dishonest. So it's not really shonen, it's not really fantasy, and it's not really a cartoon. What else could it possibly be? Well, hear me out here. What if Kimba the White Lion is a Western? Yes, the same genre full of cowboys, horses, and the wild frontier of the West. How could Kimba possibly be a Western? Well, the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. Let's start with the first thing you think about when you think of a Western. Well, at least if you're a nerd like me. The extreme long shot. Those shots where you can see the boundless plains of the Wild West, the untamed expanse of nature, where the characters are nothing but tiny silhouettes against the wilderness, stretching all the way to the horizon. Yes, shots like this. For a straight minute and a half of shots like this, I'll link you to a video on A. McKay's channel, and I'm sure there's a lot more of them in the series than even that video. Kimba the White Lion is full of shots like this. The action sequences in Kimba are also characteristic of the Western genre. Many of the episodes end with a final one-on-one showdown between Kimba and the antagonist of the episode. Fair Game features his final showdown with Speedy. Destroyers in the Desert features his showdown with each of the destroyers, one at a time. Journey into Time features his showdown with Speckle Rex's lion minion. The Flying Tiger features his showdown with, well, the Flying Tiger. And that's not to mention all the duels he has with Claw, the climax of The Wind in the Desert being the first among many. All these scenes are very reminiscent of the classic Western gunfight. Two characters with opposing beliefs face off against each other in a very personal confrontation. Perhaps the most striking similarity, though, is the soundtrack. Here's an iconic piece by the legendary Western soundtrack composer Ennio Morricone, the title theme to The Big Gun Down. And here's Isao Tomita's score for the Kimba the White Lion episode, The Wind in the Desert. Not convinced? Here's another one of Morricone's works, the trio from the soundtrack to The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. And here's Tomita's score from the episode A Dangerous Journey. It doesn't stop there. Here's Morricone's La Messicana from the spaghetti western... I cannot pronounce that. And here's Tomita's score from the Kimba episode, The Balloon That Blows Up. I could go on about the soundtrack all day. Honestly, I wouldn't mind listening to the soundtrack all day, but I think you get the picture. The instrumentation, making use of loud and resonant brass sections, soft intimate string sections, a large and energetic percussion section, and of course the classic harmonica. The rhythmic elements, creating an adventurous sudden sound like a horse galloping, and the heavy use of fifths and other large intervals to create that wide, expansive sound. All of it defines the Western genre and Kimba the White Lion. Although it's distinct in its own right, there's a lot of similarities in the musical style between Kimba the White Lion and other films in the Western genre. They speak the same musical language, if you will. Alright, but those are just surface level similarities. Genres are about the themes, the character archetypes, the deeper ideas behind a series, right? Well, the central theme in most westerns is the clash of progress and wilderness, the clash of civilization and the frontier, and the entire premise of the series is really that the main character, Kimba, is bringing progress and civilization in the form of his farm, school, and ban on hunting, to a wild and lawless place, the jungle. Even the setting is focused on this theme. The jungles of Africa really are the new Wild West, a frontier where civilization is ever encroaching on the last bastion of wilderness. But it's not only that. Another central theme in westerns is the harshness of nature, and that's a big theme in Kimba the White Lion. It's highlighted time and time again. There's the quite traumatic scene, for example, where the wild dogs hunt a herd of zebra outside Kimba's jungle, reminding us what the wild is like. There's the episode where a terrible drought almost causes the jungle to starve, and the episode where Kimba's baby giraffe friend, Geraldine, is presumed certain to die from her broken leg, because that's the way of the jungle. Though Kimba does subvert this theme a little, by showing not only the harshness of nature, but also the harshness of civilization, through scenes like the massacre of the elephants, the fire lit by the film director to trap Kitty, and the death of Kimba's parents at the hands of humans. Kimba the White Lion shows us that civilization isn't quite as peaceful and humane as we'd like to think it is. Another central theme of the Western genre is justice and retribution, and this is definitely a significant theme in Kimba. In Fair Game, Speedy fights with Kimba to avenge his grandfather. In Diamonds in the Gruff, the alligators kidnap the baby animals in retaliation for the suspected poisoning of their child, and later Polly sends the diamond smugglers to kill the alligators in retaliation for that. and in The Trappers, Daniel urges Kimba to take his revenge on the trappers who killed his father. Those aren't the only examples. The show is filled with stories about justice and retribution, though in all these cases the theme is subverted quite a lot, as the main character, Kimba, believes in mercy and forgiveness, and refuses to take revenge on anyone, even when he has every reason to. Still, there's no denying the theme is absolutely a major focus of the series, even if it's played quite differently than in most westerns. But it's not only the themes that Kimba shares with the western genre, it also shares many of the same character archetypes as well, particularly with the main protagonist and the main antagonists of the series. Many westerns feature an outwardly stoic main protagonist who is somewhat alone in the world and doesn't show his vulnerabilities in front of others.
I just couldn't let the others see how worried I was. Most of the time, I can be as brave as my father was and accept whatever happens. But sometimes I feel so small and afraid.
That definitely describes Kimba. He does have friends in the jungle, but he's never really able to be open with them, because he's also their prince and can't let them see his vulnerability. Without parents and without friends he can be open with, he's definitely a bit of a loner. In fact, we often see him insist on facing danger alone, like when he sneaks away to cross the dangerous savannah, filled with wild dogs, on his own to collect seeds for the farm. Like a typical Western hero, Kimba is also somewhat of an outsider who just turned up one day. He is admittedly the son of the jungle's old king, but even so he was born on a ship and raised by humans. No one in the jungle even knew him until he showed up and saved them from Claw. Speaking of Claw, the main antagonists in Kimba the White Lion are characteristic of a western as well. Claw and his minions, Cassius and the hyenas, are outlaws who repeatedly disturb the harmony of Kimba's jungle and the innocent animals who live there, and the same is true of many secondary antagonists as well. Clutch, an eagle who refuses to follow the laws of Kimba's jungle and kills animals anyway. The Howler Gang, a gang of monkeys who consider themselves above the law and trash the jungle's post office and attack its employees. And the human weapon smugglers from The Wind in the Desert, diamond smugglers from Diamonds in the Gruff, and poachers from The Last Poacher. All outlaws who Kimba and his friends must defeat to protect the innocent by bringing order. This is again a kind of character very common in the Western genre. So is Kimba the White Lion a Western? Well, it's really up for interpretation, but it definitely focuses on many of the same themes and uses many of the same techniques as a typical Western. It does subvert many of those themes, but they're still very central to the series. A case could be made either way, but in my opinion, Western is the genre that most accurately describes the series. What do you think, though? What genre do you feel Kimba the White Lion fits into, if any? Let me know in the comments. That's all for now, fellow animals. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you won't miss a thing. If there's something Kimba related you'd like to see a video about, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your suggestions. I might look ferocious, but I don't bite, promise.